Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, buying one of the most influential social media platforms in the world, Twitter. How will he change Twitter? How will he change the way that we use social media? I want to talk about that with Kara Swisher. She's with us today. She is a New York Times contributing writer, the host of the New York Times podcast Sway and the New York Magazine's podcast Pivot. And she's covered big tech and the internet for many years. Kara, really good to have you with us. I want to start with asking you, you said when the news broke that Elon Musk will make of Twitter what he wants.
Yeah.
So what exactly does he want? I mean, how will the look and feel of Twitter change?
Well, there haven't been many specifics at all. And he's talked about things that have been planned by Twitter and haven't been implemented, like editable tweets where you can change tweets. And of course, there's an edit trace, which has been around at Facebook forever, et cetera. And so they're going to do that. He might not allow anonymity anymore, possibly, that you can trace the account to a person, and that would lead to getting rid of bots, which would be a better experience. Those are all product changes. He's thinking of also changing the business model away from advertising and more towards subscriptions. He's talked about that broadly, but not with any kind of specifics. There's been a lot of suggestions that you charge power users a monthly fee and that they're, et cetera, and then you remove advertising from the equation. It now makes up most of Twitter's revenue right now. He has to do something around the business because it's pretty bad. It's not the strongest business, and given how much money he's laying out, he's got to and getting loans, he's going to have to really turbocharge its business and its user growth. So those are two important things. Around the free speech stuff, I don't know. I don't know what his rules are going to be. Free speech for all is kind of vague. What does that mean? What if it's this? What if it's that? And I think he's going to get sucked up into that, just like every other social media site has done. And then there's rules around the world, which are different for every country. Germany is very different than the United States, and there's certain things you can't put up. And so he's got to adhere to those. Now, Twitter's had the experience to do so, but under Musk, it might be a little looser, would be my guess.
We'll come back to the free speech piece, but do you think that we could be paying to use Twitter in the coming months?
I think there probably will be a paid version that is a better version for some people. It just makes sense in a lot of ways. They've tried it out with Twitter Blue. There's other ways to do other things. There's a thing called Mastodon, which is using, being able to, disassociate Twitter from itself so people can make their own Twitters. That's another scheme that they have, that Jack Dorsey. It's not a scheme, it's just an idea. So there's all kinds of ideas, but I would suspect some sort of payment for Twitter is probably going to be in the works, would be my guess.
You mentioned yourself, it's not the best financial deal, perhaps, for Elon Musk. I mean, what is behind his decision to make this purchase now?
He wants it now. That's why. I don't know what else to say. He's the richest person in the world, and that's what he wants. Now, it is an opportunity. A lot of people have poked around Twitter and wanted to buy it. Either there's controversial issues like whatever Donald Trump was doing that particular day. There were the financial issues, or the fact that, growth had slowed a lot, and it's never gotten as big as other social networks like Facebook, obviously. But at the same time, TikTok and others have zoomed past it. And so it's not just a question of size. Smaller entities have gotten bigger, whether it's Snapchat or Instagram, which is part of Facebook, or whatever. But they haven't done enough to really turbocharge the product. And so he's got to do that. That's something that's really important, because he owes a lot of money in loans, and a lot of stuff is leveraged against his own Tesla shares. And if something happens to those, I mean, say Apple announces a car thing, whoa, that's going to be a problem for his stock. And so that could be a problem for him.
If we take a step back and look at the bigger picture, we know that Elon Musk is beloved and hated, especially on Twitter. If we take the perspective of people who believe that he will be a blessing for Twitter, open it up, what good do you think he can do in supporting dialogue and free speech?
It's very difficult online. I don't know. He acts like he has a magic bullet, and I think a lot of people have been working at this for years. He's a very smart guy. He runs some very good companies. Not everything is perfect at either of those more. He has lots of companies, but the two flagship ones, SpaceX and Tesla. Obviously, he's really good at landing rockets on platforms in the ocean. But it's not quite the same thing to get people to talk civilly. That's a lot easier, actually, from a technical point of view. To get that to do rockets is a lot easier than, because they tend to behave the way you program them. People do not.
Yeah, Twitter the past few years under its previous leadership has been focusing on healthy conversation, trying to promote better dialogue, and also to police some of the misinformation, disinformation on the platform. Is this going to be now the Wild West with Elon Musk at the head of it?
I don't know. I don't know. I think he doesn't mind unhealthy dialogue, I think. I think he doesn't think it's the worst thing. He thinks it's better for democracy. And you saw his statement. It was very lofty. It's a lot of words and it was a little bit of a PR thing, but I think he believes it and it's hard. He would, of course he would, because he gets to say anything he wants and he's from a very safe place. I think he's got to think really hard about people who are less safe than he is, of which is pretty much the entire human race. So I think that's going to be an issue for him, is to be empathetic towards others who may get kicked around on the platform, of which there are many.
He also tweeted out yesterday that he hopes that his biggest critics
Mhm.
remain on Twitter because that is essentially free speech, but he doesn't respond very well to criticism. What do you think he's going to use this platform for going forward?
Oh, the same stuff. You know, one of the great things about it. One, he's got money in the game, right? So that's a big deal. And most of the Twitter board did not have that. Two, he uses it. He's a power user of the product and he loves it. He clearly loves it. I think he's going to be doing the same thing, some stupid tweets, some obnoxious tweets, some funny tweets, a lot of memes, a lot of weed jokes, and then weird statements he just makes and puts out there, and then pictures of rocket ships and cars. He likes to do that. So the same old for Elon Musk.
Let's play this out a little bit. I mean, you've said that he would probably reinstate Donald Trump because he was against the decision to ban Donald Trump from the platform originally, anyways. Let's say Donald Trump is reinstated, and on day one, he says or tweets out the 2020 election was stolen. How do you imagine Elon Musk would react to that?
I think he'd leave it there. I think he'd
Hmm.
leave it. I do. I don't know. Maybe Twitter was trying to put things on top of that, like warnings. This is actually what happened. I don't know if they would keep doing that under Elon. It's still, I don't know. I don't know if Donald Trump's going to come back. He says he's not. I don't believe him, but nobody, usually when Donald Trump says something, you take the under on the opposite, and you're usually accurate. And he can't resist. He can't resist Twitter. He loves it.
Another bigger picture question, rather, Kara, do you think that Elon Musk could actually reshape the way that we're using social media on a whole?
Well, anybody could do that at any time. I think TikTok's doing more for that than anybody else. I maybe, Twitter hasn't, bathed itself in glory about size or impact. And by the way, it's very popular among the media and politicians and other people like that, but most of the world isn't on Twitter. And that's the problem. That's the problem. Most of the people aren't in this public square, which is actually a private square owned by a billionaire. But that said, it's a small little voice and it has an outsized influence because of the people who use it and lose their minds on it a lot of the time and enjoy it other parts of the time.
It's not the only big social media company owned by a very wealthy man.
Mhm.
Is that a trend that you think we should all be worried about?
Well, Mark Zuckerberg got wealthy by creating a social network. Elon Musk got wealthy making a car, and so and now he's buying a social network. Yes, rich people have owned media forever. I'm sorry if you look around at ownership of media, it's always been the wealthiest people in society, and so it's just different wealthy people with different attitudes and different power because this stuff has much more power than uh, even TV networks or newspapers in the past. You really can reach the entire globe in a way you never could. And so there's quantum amounts of power here, quantum amounts of wealth, and quantum amounts of concentration of power. And that's always a problem in my mind.
Yeah, I guess my point is that Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg are not all representative of the people who are using the platform.
Well, I guess the old owners were the Saudis, so they're not representative of many people I would prefer to deal with. So, that's
Fair
one
enough.
thing Elon pointed out. He pointed out, he's like, oh, well, the Saudis, they're so good. And that's sort of a whataboutism, but I'm with him on that one, I have to say.
Last question, Kara. The EU in particular has been moving towards cracking down on social media companies, on making them or holding them responsible for the content that they host. Elon Musk has made very clear how he feels about regulation, particularly when it comes to his other business interests. What do you think he will do? How do you think he will deal with governments trying to crack down on platforms like Twitter going forward?
Well, I think he's got some issues with the SEC. He continues and will continue to have. He can only poke them so much before they actually do something about it, especially if he does something illegal or problematic or breaks a rule. This is very different. Europe has moved really quickly around the Digital Markets Act, all kinds of things that Margrethe Vestager is doing. Eventually, the U.S. will put in place some sort of privacy bills or data bills, maybe someday. when we've all moved to Mars with Elon Musk. But until then, there's going to be an increasing amount of regulation, especially around privacy and data, not around free speech. That's sort of it's sort of a bright, noisy bird that everybody pays attention to on Twitter, but really it's about privacy and data in the end. And that's where our governments need to regulate. And that's what's worrisome, is really concentrated power with this enormous amount of information about people.